founder's cousin came and I haven't done this before. I came on site about 2 hours ago with Dom. Truth be told, I've had 2 shits and 4 pisses since then. I just had to relieve myself again, so this is not what I do, like opening up like and sharing my story with people I don't know, especially being a man, and like I've always been told, you know, you're quite a masculine man and sporty, and my 20s was like fighting and fucking. That was my extracurricular activities.
Wasn't it for us all?
Huh?
That was the same for us all.
Yeah. But mine took a darker path in my late 20s, and no matter how I tell the story, the good times and this and that, and you know, work and career and pay rises and promotions, I always ended up getting fired, being unmanageable, and I ended up on a window ledge 8 years ago in Amsterdam. I'd moved there for a fresh start to get away from the drinking and the drugs, believe it or not. And yeah, I was a functioning cocaine addict for years, and then I moved to Amsterdam and I was isolated. And after about 2 years, I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't sniff anymore, I couldn't drink anymore. I couldn't live with the isolation anymore of having these things that I wanted to talk about or to share with someone. Like, I'm not talking about a therapist or a room full of strangers. Like, I just wanted to tell my best friend or tell someone like that I've been thinking about killing myself for a couple of years. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't break the stigma. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what mental health was. And about 4 in the morning, in my boxing shorts after a 2-day, 12-gram binge in isolation again, I stepped out until I was living in an attic in a converted building in Amsterdam, one of those old high rises, and I closed the window behind me, and I just said, this is it, I can't do this anymore. I felt worthless. I was a mad fantasist, so I pictured my funeral in my church where I was raised in Brixton. I apologised to my mum in my head for being a worthless son. I always remember it. Tears strolling down my eyes, and it was starting to rain as well, like a scene from a fucking bad movie. And I tried to jump, and all I can say is a power greater than myself made my body fling back and like grab into the brickwork. Always remember the red brickwork under my nails. And the voice in the head, if you know what I mean, the internal dialogue said, just sit down and roll yourself off, it'll be easier. And I tried. And then again, my bum scooted back as I tried to roll off the edge. And long story short is that something came over me and I went back into my converted attic, cried my eyes out, and then truth be told, I started looking for coke on the floor and sniffing out the carpet because I was gone, man. I lost all self-respect. But what happened the next day was I didn't realise it was the start of the whole journey of getting to this point here and having a pretty great life. Is I told my flatmate that, you know, I had a problem, I was addicted to coke. And then the next day I spoke to someone in London and I told him the same. And then I flew back to London on a Saturday, a few days later after this failed attempt. And I told one of my best friends in the airport in Gatwick, I said, I need help, man, I can't do this. I couldn't talk about suicide because that was too much guilt and shame. That took 7 years to talk about. But I could just, it broke free, the stigma. I was like, I didn't know I was breaking the stigma, but I did. I told people that I need help. So I started going to meetings, could never be honest. Because even though I knew I was fucked, there was levels of like, you can't let people in because you're a man, and I can't be perceived as weak with men. I can't be perceived as weak with women because you may want to fuck them at some point. And I especially just didn't like being perceived as being a weak man with other men because, like I said, I did a lot of fighting and fucking in my 20s, and like a lot of it was fun. But I needed to break the stigma, and after a couple of years of relapsing and botched attempts at recovery, I got it. You know, I mean, I started to open up, not about the suicide, but everything else in my life. And I was living I had a good period. I was 6 months. I was clean and serene, as they say. And on my 6 months clean date, I was diagnosed with cancer. And I thought I was cursed, man. I just thought I had no connection with like God or higher power or the universe. I was just like, come on, man, like the addiction and the suicide attempt was enough, but I got this testicular cancer and I had surgery, took one for the team, as they say, and had a ball removed. I kept the big one, which was the silver lining. You know, if you know, you know. And I had chemotherapy, and I had a mental breakdown during chemotherapy. I don't know whether it was all just too much and too close to everything else I've been through, but something happened, and I didn't realise the miracle of it until a year later, 2 years later, was that the cancer nurse says to me, "You haven't spoken in like 3-4 hours, we're worried about you." And I just looked at her like blank faced, and I couldn't speak, and she says, "You need to tell us what's going on." And I says, "I can't tell you, it's crazy." And she said, "What's the craziest thought you've had in the last 24 hours? And I said, "I'm going to kill myself. I can't go through with the treatment. It's just, I had all the side effects, nerve damage, going blind on my left eye, it all was so painful." But the miracle is that in that moment when I needed to say something, I just did. It happened. It wasn't a big deal. Like asking for help after the addiction thing, that was huge. It took 10 years to reach out. But when push comes to shove in Guy's Cancer Centre, and she said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I'm going to kill myself." Long story short is I got special intervention. I started going through counselling during the chemotherapy. I got out at the end of it, I got the all clear, but for some reason my chemical imbalance, I don't know what depression is, but they told me you're clinically depressed because I wasn't happy that I was cancer free, and that's obviously not a healthy position to be in. But I had already started the journey of opening up and speaking, so I continued on with therapy, going to group meetings for cancer recovery, building a community around that, keeping in touch with the addiction community. Truth be told, I started drinking and smoking weed, but I stayed away from the harder stuff. And that whole thing of isolation, trauma and depression was fed into by guilt, by embarrassment of being an addict, shame of the suicide attempt, and guilt that I wasn't happy that I was cancer free. And maybe we should go on to some happier stuff. So anyway, I 2-3 years of rebuilding. I've overcoming this crippling anxiety to leave the house and feeling depressed and just feeling like shit and just again feeling cursed. I made progress because I kept breaking the stigma on a daily, if not a weekly basis over the last few years. I broke the stigma, I got the talking therapies, and I started to experience a new way of life. I got the treatment that I needed, and I decided to leave an unhappy career in advertising, which I was always getting fired, so I wasn't doing that well. But I had a vision during cancer, that was like a God moment, and if you don't like the word God, as a lot of people don't, you just use the word universe. I just use the word God. And I could see in this vision, I was in a field and there was kids and there was animals, so I didn't know whether I was going to be a football coach, a sports coach, or work as a vet or something like that. I could just feel this vision of God telling me there's something more in your life, just keep going and keep sharing, keep getting off your chest. So 3 years ago, I volunteered as a football coach, and the boss came to me at the end of the week and he said, "You're really good at this." And for the first time in my life, the first time, I took a compliment and I said, "Yeah, I'm really good at this, I can feel it." So I was a football coach for 2 years. I continued on with the therapy. I continued on building up. I went camping with cancer recovery groups. I started going back to meetings around the drugs and stuff, just to continue this new way of life. And I started to experience freedom. Apart from a bad back, which I've got right now, which is fucking killing me, my health and fitness has been on point. I eat better, I exercise regularly. You know, I don't binge on junk food as much, but I still binge every now and then. My life ain't perfect, but about a year ago I could feel this, well basically I nearly got fired from the job I was at. I just have this thing of authority, I don't like being told what to do. But it left on bad terms. But about a year ago, I spoke to a friend Liam, and I said I've got this vision like to do the last 2 years of coaching, but do it my way, so I can be my own boss and do it in Brixton, where I'm from originally, as in where I was raised. So I started my own business in Brockwell Park, and I started coaching kids. And the first week 60 people turned up, and last weekend 60 people turned up. So I built this small business because I had belief in myself. And I believe in myself because I experienced freedom from breaking the stigma, getting treatment, and looking after myself like I'm someone that I give a damn about. You know what I mean? So where I'm at now, and I'll wrap it up, is I just broke another stigma here today with men that I don't know. You know what I mean? And it's now comfortable. But 10 minutes ago I had to run out for another piss. Just before I was like gathering myself in the mirror, I was like, fuck's sake, I've got to do this. But now I've broken the stigma again. And it's like, okay, so a man who has been through cancer, addiction, what was the other one? Oh, a suicide attempt. I don't feel any embarrassment, I don't feel any guilt, and I don't feel any shame. And the last bit of shame or guilt and embarrassment that I excised, like the demon, you know, that we excised the demon, was actually last year with the founder. I didn't tell no one for 7 years that I was on a window ledge, because that was like, you know, maybe a bit of Catholic guilt and shame, the way I was raised. You don't get buried in consecrated ground, you go to hell. It's all made up stories, but I believe them. And last year, me and Cayman, the founder, we went for a game of pool, and I asked him how he was doing, and he said, Sean, I'm grand, I'm fine. And I said, no, we haven't talked in like a one-on-one in like 6 months, socialising. And he told me where he was at in his life, in his journey. And as they say, let sleeping dogs lie. Because some of it was positive, some was negative, but he's gone. So he said what he said, and then he asked me how I was. And I nearly was in tears like I am now. Because he's the first person I said to him, you know when I was living in Amsterdam 7 years ago, and he says, yeah, I said, oh, I tried jumping from a building. And then we went through the story, we had a hug and all that. And it was the last bit that I let go of. So now when I'm here today, I'm emotional, I'm not anxious anymore, I don't feel embarrassed, I feel free, you know what I mean? So if any of that resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, because you don't experience this stuff, amazing. Or maybe one day you'll meet someone that does, and you'll ask them twice how they are when you sense that something's up. But apart from that, I'll leave it there. Yeah, man, thank you.
Incredible story, man.